This happened a few months ago. I was 32 years old and had been a nurse for almost 10 years. I took night shifts to earn extra money. I thought it would help me avoid memories from my recent past. The hospital I worked in was old and felt eerie, with flickering fluorescent lights and narrow hallways. It was quiet, where time felt like it stood still. I never stopped thinking about it. On my third shift, I walked past room 206. It was usually empty, but the light was on, and I heard faint murmurs. I thought maybe a patient needed help. I hesitated, feeling a chill run down my spine. I turned the doorknob and pushed it open. It creaked loudly. I stepped inside, heart racing, but no one was there. The room was empty. I felt confused and uneasy. As the nights went on, strange things started happening. I heard whispers in the corridors. I thought maybe it was my imagination from fatigue. I found things moved in the break room. One night, I left a glass on its side. I came back later, and it was upright as if someone had put it back. My heart raced every time something odd happened. It wasn't just me. Some patients mentioned seeing a figure watching them. They woke up in a panic, pointing at shadows that didn't make sense. I rushed to check, but I never found anyone. I told myself, maybe they were just dreaming. I tried to convince myself that everything had a logical explanation. One night, I was restocking supplies in a dim hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered again, and then I felt a cold breeze wash over me. It felt wrong, like something was off. I glanced back but saw no one. I closed my eyes for a moment, hoping to shake it off. But the whispers kept coming. I told myself it was just the old building settling. I tried to focus on my work, but it was hard. I felt distracted. Was I hearing things, or was something else happening that I couldn't understand? Then, on my last shift that week, I heard a voice, soft and low, coming from room 206. I stood frozen, caught between dread and curiosity. I stepped closer and asked, "Is anyone in there?" No answer. I pushed the door open, and the creak echoed eerily. Then I heard a child's laughter behind me. I turned around, my heart pounding. Nobody was there. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. I wanted to leave. I felt like I was all alone. I stepped back toward the door, but then I heard the voice again. It was unmistakable, coming from right inside the room. "Help me," it whispered. My body froze. What was really happening in that hospital that I couldn't explain? My heart raced, caught in a wave of uncertainty. "Help me," the voice called again, softer this time, more urgent. I took a shaky step back, my instincts screaming at me to run. But part of me was anchored to the floor, a morbid curiosity compelling me to lean in closer. I glanced cautiously around the empty hallway, hoped for a sign that I wasn't alone. The dim light of room 206 flickered, casting shadows that danced menacingly on the wall. I could hear my breath echoing in the silence, an awkward rhythm in the oppressive stillness. Then, that voice came again, a mere whisper infused with an unsettling familiarity. "Help me." What was I supposed to do? Did I really want to answer that call? I took a deep breath and stepped inside the room, willing my feet to move. The air felt heavier, leaving a strange taste in my mouth. I called out, "Is someone in here?" My own voice felt weak now, swallowed by the thick darkness around me. I scanned the room. The bed was empty, the sheets untouched, and the curtains drawn shut. Only the bedside table broke the monotony, a small lamp illuminating the dust particles that floated in the air. Then, just beneath the lamp, I noticed something. A small toy half buried in debris. It was a teddy bear, worn and faded. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years, yet here it was, some remnant of a time long gone. Curiosity mixed with dread as I picked up the bear. It felt cold in my hands, and as I examined it, I felt the weight of history pressed upon me. Just then I heard it again, The soft giggle, this time closer. "Help me." I dropped the bear, a sense of urgency washing over me. I couldn't just stand here. What did the voice want? I felt my resolve dragging me to the edge. I opened my mouth to call for help, but instead I heard the laughter again, echoing, approaching. I turned abruptly, my heart thudding violently against my ribs. Before I could react, the lights in the room flickered and went out. Darkness enveloped me in an instant. The shadows stretched, and I felt the presence of someone, or something, looming just outside my line of sight. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled backward, colliding with the doorframe. The whispers grew louder, like a swell of voices all pleading at once. "Let me out! Let me out!" they cried, and I felt their weight pressing on me, as if the dark itself was trying to swallow me whole. I could no longer discern what was real and what was not. Then, just when I thought I might be trapped forever, the lights flickered back on. My breath hitched in my throat. That's when I saw it. A shadowy figure standing at the foot of the bed, its features indistinct but its presence undeniable. I stood frozen, too terrified to scream. All I knew was that I needed to get out. But before I could make a decision, the figure began to fade. And then everything went dark again. I stood in the darkness, heart pounding. Seconds felt like hours, and then the lights flickered back to life yet again. The room was empty. No shadowy figure, just an ordinary hospital room, and the unsettling stillness returned. I blinked, unsure of what had just happened. Had I imagined it all? I took a shaky step forward, feeling my way around the bed. The cool metal of the bed rail grounded me. "Hello?" I called out again, my voice sounding small and fragile. Nothing answered, just the soft hum of the fluorescent lights above me. I felt the urge to run, but forced myself to stand still. There had to be a reason I was here. I turned and caught sight of the teddy bear on the floor. It seemed to beckon me, a remnant from a forgotten past. I took a deep breath and crouched down to pick it up again. As I did, I noticed something glinting around the area where the bear had been resting. A small silver key lay next to a crumpled piece of paper. I picked up the paper first and unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, almost frantic. It read, "Room 212, the key. Find her." My pulse quickened. Room 212. I had to know what was concealed in that room. My instincts began to tingle, urging me on. I glanced back at the room's door, the hallway beckoning with its haunting silence. With the key clutched tightly in my hand, I raced out, my heart racing in time with my footsteps. The hallway felt different now, like it was watching me. Shadows crept into my periphery and whispers echoed faintly, growing ever fainter as I neared room 212. The door stood slightly ajar, inviting yet foreboding. I reached for the handle, my fingers trembling. The key felt heavier, as if infused with the weight of secrets waiting to be unearthed. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Room 212 was strikingly similar to room 206, dusty and forgotten. Old equipment lay abandoned, and once again a faded hospital bed sat in the middle of the room, its sheets yellowed with age. The air felt thick again, that strange taste returning. But something was different this time. A child's laughter broke the silence, bright and clear. My heart lurched. It was the same laugh from before, but now it felt more alive, like a song echoing off the walls. "Help me!" a voice sang out, joyous yet tinged with desperation. I scanned the room, but there was no one. Then I saw it. A dark, heavy chest at the foot of the bed. A glimmer of light caught my eye. Something lay atop it. I stepped closer, driven by a mix of dread and fascination. As I approached, the laughter grew louder, swirling around me like a playful spirit. "Help me!" It echoed again, wrapping around my mind. I reached out for the chest, but before I could touch it, the door slammed shut behind me. The laughter stopped abruptly, replaced by a deafening silence. I turned to the door, panic welling up inside me. Someone or something was trapping me here. I needed to escape. But my hands froze inches from the chest, my breath quickening as a new fear settled in. The laughter returned, a haunting chorus of voices now calling out to me. They weren't just whispers anymore. They were desperate pleas from beyond. Suddenly, my biggest fear struck me. Whatever was in the chest was about to reveal the truth behind those calls. I hesitated, caught between the chest and the now solidified sense of dread hanging in the air. The voices swirled around me like a storm, each plea clawing at my mind. I felt like I was trapped in a world where reality blurred, and the echoes of laughter turned sinister. I took a step back, figuring I needed to gather my thoughts, but the silence pressed in closer. I struggled to keep my breathing steady. The laughter had turned into scattered sobs, overlapping, demanding to be heard. I glanced back at the chest, the source of my torment. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if it was breathing. With a surge of courage, I braced myself and approached it again. I needed to unlock its secrets, even if it terrified me. As I reached out, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic lying on top. A small silver locket. It felt heavy in my hand, like it carried the weight of memories. The laughter shifted to soft sobs, replaced by a whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "Open it." My heart raced at the sudden urgency in those words. I turned the locket over, revealing an engraving, 2 initials entwined together. They felt familiar, yet distant, like a conviction I couldn't quite grasp. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from behind me. The door rattled violently, as if something were trying to force its way in. My instincts screamed for me to flee, but I felt anchored to that chest, as if it had chained me to the truth it held inside. Another sound resonated. This time a child's voice broke through the chaos. "Help me!" It was clear, and it felt impossibly close. Panic shot through my veins. I spun around, but there was nobody there. I was completely alone, save for the shadows that shifted unsettlingly in the corners of my vision. "Open it!" The urgency grew sharper in my mind. I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to know what lay inside the chest. I turned back to it and fumbled with the latch. My fingers trembled uncontrollably, but the emotional call was too strong. Before I could open it, the sobbing intensified and morphed into a shrieking wail, echoing through the room. It was a sound of deep sorrow, like a plea from the depths of despair. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. An eerie stillness settled in. A chill crawled up my spine as I finally unlocked the chest. The lid creaked open slowly, and my breath caught in my throat. Inside, I saw a collection of items, a faded photograph, a small rag doll, and something wrapped in a frayed piece of fabric. As I reached in to pull out the photograph, everything went dark. The sudden absence of light intensified my fear. I could no longer hear the child or the cries. Dread gripped me tightly. I was plunging into a void, completely cut off from the outside world. Then I felt it. A cold hand wrapping around my wrist. My heart dropped, and choking terror shot through me. I didn't want to turn around, but I had no choice. "Find me," the whispering voice urged again, slithering beneath my skin. I knew one thing for certain. I could no longer escape. The chest hadn't just opened a door to the past, it had opened a path I never wanted to walk. I braced myself for whatever was to come next. I felt the grip tighten around my wrist. I gasped and squeezed my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up from this nightmare. But when I opened them again, I was still standing in that dim room, surrounded by the encroaching darkness. I turned slowly, heart racing, scanning the void for a glimpse of whatever held me. Nothing. A suffocating silence settled in again. I pulled my wrist free from that elusive grip and stumbled back, nearly knocking over the chest. My instincts shouted at me to leave, to run, but a strange pull kept me near. I glanced at the chest, wondering what more it would reveal. I took a breath, hoping for clarity. I needed light. I wasn't ready to confront whatever was lurking in the shadows. My fingers brushed against the locket in my pocket, its weight grounding me. I closed my eyes and thought of my last shift at the hospital. It felt like a lifetime ago, but somehow reminded me of this terror. In a moment of desperation, I stumbled toward the door, hands raised as if to shield myself from any potential threat. The door swung open unexpectedly, revealing a corridor illuminated by flickering lights. A small flicker of hope surged through me. Maybe I could find help. As I stepped through the door, the air shifted, heavy with dread again. I walked forward cautiously, the worn wooden floor creaking under my weight. With each step, the shadows seemed to stretch and twist around me, whispering incoherent threats. Suddenly another sound reached my ears. A soft, broken sobbing echoed in the distance, pulling me away from my fears. I hesitated. What if it was the child? The thought pierced through my gut. "Help me," I whispered to myself, repeating the plea. It felt like an invitation to investigate further. I moved toward the sound, allowing it to lead me deeper into the labyrinth of the dimly lit hall. The sobs grew louder, echoing off the walls as I turned a corner. But as I approached the source, the wails intensified, morphing into desperate cries. It was a visceral sound that made my skin crawl. My heart raced, fear clawing at the edges of my mind. That's when I saw it. At the end of the corridor, a flickering shadow materialized against the wall. I squinted through the darkness, waiting for clarity. My breath caught in my throat as the figure materialized. It was a small girl, hair disheveled, her face pale and streaked with tears. "Help me," she shouted again, her voice slipping through the fog of shadows. Just then, the lights above flickered wildly, casting the hall into darkness once more. I froze, my instincts screaming for me to run, but her gaze held me captive. I had to know what she wanted. "Where are you?" I called, fighting against the urge to retreat. Her features were hauntingly familiar, but my mind couldn't place them. "I'm here, here," she screamed, her voice echoing with urgency. But then the lights flickered back on, and she was gone. The corridor now felt nothing more than a void, empty save for my racing pulse. I turned and raced back to the room with the chest. I needed answers. I dove into the items inside, searching for something, anything that could help me make sense of the little girl and the whispers. But as my hands rummaged through the contents, I froze again. The last wrapped item in the chest began to tremble. Was it my imagination, or was it alive? I felt the thrill of dread mix with determination. Whatever power was at play, I was ready to confront it head-on. Just as I peeled back the frayed fabric, a sudden rush of cold air swept through the room. It carried a scent of damp earth and despair. I gasped as I felt a presence manifest beside me. The urgency returned stronger than before. Time was slipping away. "Find me," the voice echoed in my mind again, this time from both the girl and the shadows. I gripped the photograph I had found earlier. Maybe it was linked to the girl. Then everything went dark once more, leaving me in an ominous silence, and I knew that I had to uncover the truth before it vanished forever. I stood there in the darkness, trembling. The silence pressed in, suffocating, and I could feel my pulse quickening. I shut my eyes tightly, willing myself to hear something, anything. Just a whisper, a hint of what had happened. But all I got was the echo of my own fear. Suddenly a flicker of light pierced the dark, like a tiny star in a vast empty sky. I opened my eyes, squinting against the sudden brightness. It was the chest again. As the dim light flickered, I could see the fragile outline of the trembling object I had unwrapped moments before. It lay there, almost alive, waiting for me. I approached it cautiously. The moment I reached out, it stilled. I drew back, uncertain. What game was here? Was it taunting me? Gritting my teeth, I picked it up and saw what was inside, a small, ornate key. It looked ancient, the metal cold against my palm. I turned it over, but there was no indication of what it might unlock. At that moment, the chill in the air thickened, as if something tangible surrounded me. Shadows crept up the walls, and I felt the weight of countless eyes watching from the corners of the room. There was no escaping this presence. I had come too far. "You have to find her." A raspy voice broke through the silence, sending shivers down my spine. I dropped the key, scrambling backward, but my back hit the chest. Panic surged as I looked around. It was the girl's voice, but it sounded different, distorted. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice shaky. "Find me. I'm close, but I need you to help." The voice trailed off, swallowed by the darkness. It sounded both young and ancient, the despair haunting. My mind raced. What did it mean? The corridor loomed behind me, the flickering lights casting shifting shadows that seemed to beckon me. I had to decide, stay here with the disembodied voice or follow her through this dark labyrinth. I swallowed hard, heart pounding in my ears. "What do you want?" I asked, knowing full well that I had to confront whatever this was. "Unlock it," the voice whispered urgently. "You're the key." Taking a deep breath, I glanced at the key I had dropped, fear clawing at my insides. What did that even mean? With shaky hands, I picked up the key again and held it tightly, its surface still cold. A vision flashed through my mind, the photo I had seen earlier of the girl, smiling painfully wide. As quickly as it came, it faded, leaving only dread in its wake. I turned to the door leading out of the room. "Unlock what?" I asked, more to myself than anyone else. I needed answers. The girl, the voice, the shadows, they were all connected. Just then I noticed a faded outline on the door, something resembling a keyhole. My heart raced. This seemed too eerie to dismiss. Was this the way to the girl? I stepped forward, key in hand, the whispers swirling around me, urging me on. Just as I reached for the doorknob, I heard a loud crash from down the corridor, jolting me back. The shadowy form returned, flickering like a flame about to extinguish. "Do not let them take you," it hissed. My heart dropped. I was not alone. Someone or something was hunting me. Now, urgency consumed me. The girl needed me. If it was my only chance to help her, I couldn't wait any longer. I took one last glance at the chest and the now still key. It was time to choose. I pressed the key into the keyhole, my body trembling with dread and anticipation. Then, without warning, the door swung open, revealing a blinding light that pulled me in with the force of a magnet. I stumbled through the doorway and immediately shielded my eyes from the blinding light. As the brilliance faded, I found myself in a narrow hallway, dimly lit and lined with old stone walls. The air felt thick, like it had been trapped here for years. I instinctively glanced back, but the door had vanished, leaving me alone in this strange place. A low hum resonated through the corridor, vibrating beneath my feet. I couldn't tell if it was the sound of machinery or something else entirely. I took a cautious step forward, my senses heightened, alert for any signs of movement. The silence felt oppressive, each breath echoing as if the walls were listening. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement up ahead. My heart raced again. Was it the girl? I squinted, trying to make out what I was seeing. A shadow darted between the beams of light, disappearing just as quickly. For a moment I hesitated. Should I follow? Or was it leading me into a trap? I chose to follow. Whatever this was, it felt like my only chance. As I crept along the corridor, my pulse quickened, each footstep echoing like a war drum in the silence. I turned a corner and entered a wider space. The room was circular, with metal shelves lining the walls, cluttered with jars and strange instruments I couldn't identify. In the center stood an old wooden table, and as I moved closer, I felt a chill run down my spine. There, tangled among the shadows cast by the weak light, lay a heap of torn photographs. I bent down to examine them. They showed the girl again, that same smile frozen in time. But now I noticed something unsettling. Each picture was labeled with a date and location, but many were crossed out, as if signaling she could not be found. My heart sank. Who had taken these? Why were they so desperate to keep her hidden? The key. A whisper echoed, gentle yet urgent. My instincts kicked in, and I turned quickly, scanning the dim room. An old mirror caught my eye, its surface cracked and tarnished. There was something about it, something familiar. I approached slowly, heart pounding. My reflection seemed off. The girl's image flickered behind me as if she were standing right there, pressing against the barrier of reality. "Help me," she mouthed silently. Panic flooded my body. Was I losing my mind? Just then, an ominous sound rumbled behind me, a mix of metal scraping and a growl that felt alive. I whirled around, eyes wide. There was no mistaking it now. The shadows coalesced into a dark figure, taking shape and form, and it exuded a malevolent presence. Everything went dark. I was engulfed in an overwhelming darkness, and the shadow lunged at me. I heard the girl's voice, faint but clear, cutting through the void. "You are my only hope." And then I was falling, spiraling into the abyss, the echo of her plea ringing in my ears. I had no idea where I was going or what awaited me, but I knew I couldn't give up. I needed to find her. Suddenly, I landed hard on the ground, gasping. I blinked and looked around. I was back in the corridor, the door, now visible, still opened wide. But something had changed. The shadows were thicker, like an encroaching fog, swallowing the light and promising something terrible. I felt a shiver run through me, realizing I wasn't alone anymore. Someone was in the house, and it wasn't friendly. A chill wrapped around my spine, tightening with every slow breath I took. I could feel it in the air, the weight of something lurking just beyond the edges of the dim light. I stepped back cautiously, my back pressed against the cool stone wall as I searched for any signs of movement. A slight scuffle echoed from deeper within the corridor. My heart raced, but I couldn't bring myself to run. Curiosity and fear tangled inside me, each feeling fighting for dominance. I needed to know who, or what, was here. Suddenly, a flicker of light caught my attention from a doorway at the end of the hall. It beckoned me, a sliver of hope breaking through the darkness. I took a cautious step forward, but as I did, the whispers intensified, swirling around me. They were indistinct, a haunting chorus that sent shivers down my arms. "Help me." The voice was shrill and desperate, chilling me to the core. It echoed from the lighted doorway. I paused, feeling the weight of hesitation creep in. Whatever awaited me could be dangerous, but the girl's cry pierced through my fear. I wasn't ready to abandon her. I took a deep breath and darted toward the light. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, I halted. The room was filled with strange, glowing devices that hummed and whirred, casting pale shadows that danced on the walls. Among the chaos stood a single figure, a tall, thin silhouette shrouded in darkness. "Where did you come from?" The figure rasped, their voice a low growl. It stepped forward, its features partially illuminated in the eerie glow. My heart surged as I realized it wasn't human at all. I stumbled back, my instincts kicking in. The creature had elongated limbs and eyes that glittered like wet stones. Panic flooded me, pushing me to the brink. I had to escape, but the narrow corridor behind me had vanished again, leaving me trapped. The creature extended a claw-like hand, pointing at something in the corner of the room. I followed its gaze and found a locked glass case containing a key. My breath caught. The key. It had to be important. "Bring it to me," the creature seethed, its voice rising an octave. I knew then that it was desperate, possibly even afraid of what the key would unlock. There was no way I could trust it. With every ounce of courage I had, I turned and bolted toward the opposite wall, searching for a possible exit. As I ran, I knew I couldn't let the creature catch me. I needed to find the girl and escape. But just as I reached the far wall, the humming intensified, vibrating through the air. In an instant, the room shifted, twisting and turning around me. One moment I was here, and the next, I was thrust into yet another corridor, lined with countless doors. Panic overtook me, my breath coming in short gasps. Then I heard it again, the girl's voice, clearer this time. "This way." The urgency in her tone drove me forward. I had to find her. But what lay behind the next door could change everything. I gritted my teeth and approached the nearest door, my hand trembling as I grasped the handle. With one final glance back, I threw it open, plunging into the unknown. I stepped into the new room, heart pounding like a hammer against my ribs. The air felt heavy like I walked into a fog. The sounds were muffled and I strained my ears to catch anything. Footsteps, whispers, even the girl's voice. But it was silent. Too silent, save for the faint buzzing of lights overhead. Before me lay a stark white room, stark against the darkness outside. A single bed sat in the center with crisp sheets, untouched. I scanned the walls, searching for clues. There were medical charts and strange photographs, but they didn't help me make sense of this place. Then I caught movement in my periphery. My heart stuttered as I turned, but it was only my imagination. At least I hoped. I took a cautious step to the side, closer to the door I had come through. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. "Help me." The girl's voice came again, softer now, almost a whisper on the breeze. It was near, almost imminent. My instincts screamed to follow, but I couldn't ignore the unsettling atmosphere around me. The tension in the room constricted around my chest. I crossed the room, drawn to a small desk in the corner. Various instruments lay scattered across its surface, and one caught my eye, a small, serrated knife. I recoiled, but it wasn't the blade that terrified me. It was the blood-stained cloth next to it. What had happened here? Fighting back nausea, I pressed on, picking up a dark wooden box next to the desk. It felt heavy, as if it held the weight of the world. I hesitated, but curiosity overpowered my fear. I opened it slowly, and I gasped. Inside were photos, images of different faces, all with the same vacant expressions. I dropped the box as if it burned in my hands. My throat went dry. Was this some kind of twisted collection? Did the creature know these people? Had it hurt them? Suddenly the temperature dropped, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I rushed to the door, desperate to escape this place. "Where are you?" I called, hoping the girl could guide me. But the silence returned, thick and suffocating. Just then, there was a scraping sound behind me, and I whipped around. The bed had shifted slightly, the sheets rustling as if someone or something had been there. My heart raced, and panic clawed at my throat. I had to go. But before I could turn back to the door, I saw it, an outline forming at the foot of the bed. A figure, indistinct at first, began to coalesce into a recognizable shape, a young girl, her eyes wide and full of terror. The same girl I had heard. Was she real? "Help me," she pleaded, reaching out toward me. But just as I felt the urge to rush forward, another voice boomed behind me. "Stop. Don't trust her." My breath hitched at the sound. I turned slowly, dread pooling in my gut. The creature from before was there, its eyes glinting with menace. Before I could think to run, the room began to tremble. Walls shook, lights flickered, and just as the girl's desperate gaze locked onto mine, everything went dark. When the darkness pulled away, I found myself standing in that eerie hospital hallway once again, breathless and disoriented. A faint light flickered at the end, the way I had come before, but the shadows felt denser now, swirling like a storm closing in. I clutched the small silver key, its metal cold against my palm, and felt a blend of fear and determination surge through me. The girl's voice echoed in my mind, a haunting refrain begging for help. But right alongside it was the creature's warning, a stark reminder of the danger lurking in every corner. I marveled how the shadows along the wall twisted, giving life to my anxiety. I needed to act. The disappearances, the whispers, and now the jagged encounters, it was all connected, and I felt as if I was nearing whatever truth lay hidden in this place. With deliberate steps, I approached the door that had once welcomed me into this nightmare. "Help me," the girl urged again from somewhere close, pulling me forward as I traced the outline of the keyhole I had first noticed. Heart pounding, I pressed the key into it and turned gently, half expecting the corridor to twist again. Instead, the door swung open, revealing the room I had abandoned, the one that held the dark chest and shattered echoes of the girl's sobs. As I stepped through, the door slammed shut behind me, sealing away the shadows I knew were hungry for my return. I took a deep breath, focusing on the chest at the foot of the bed. I had to understand what lay within, what connection was there to the girl who called for me. My hand trembled as I approached the chest and opened it, revealing the items inside, the photograph, the rag doll, and the locket. They felt heavy with sadness and urgency. I picked up the photograph first, the image blurrily highlighting the girl with a radiant smile, now distorted by time. "Where are you?" I whispered, but only silence responded. I rifled through the contents, seeking answers as pieces of my mind clicked together. The photograph, the girl's voice. I needed to find her, yet threads of my doubts mingled with every heartbeat. I glanced toward the door again. Would it lead me back? "There has to be a way," I murmured, looking back at the items. The locket caught my eye, and with a rush of intuition I opened it. Inside I found another photograph, this one clearer. It captured the girl from the hospital, but the edge bore a date that sent chills through me as I recognized one of the crossed-out ones from the chest earlier. The cold dots of reality aligned, and what I felt was a ticking clock that urged me to hurry. Then a new sound began to creep into the room, a soft, hollow weeping that echoed like a song cradled in the air. "Please help me," the girl's voice called once more desperate than before. It resonated in my chest and lifted my resolve. There was something tethering me to her, something I couldn't abandon. The walls seemed to close in as I fought against the thread of panic coursing through me. I turned once more toward the door that had helped me exit before, ready to confront the creature and breach the threshold of whatever awaited me out there. My heart thundered, but I felt the locket thrumming against my skin, a tether to the girl on the other side. As I flung open the door, I was immediately engulfed by darkness, an abyss filled with whispers and the shadows that loomed like threats. The cold air pressed close, but I pushed through, calling her name now. "I'm here. Where are you?" Just then, light filtered down from above, illuminating a figure standing in the distance, that same small girl, disheveled, fragile. Her face was now adorned with fear, her silent plea slicing through the chaos surrounding us. "Help me," she cried again, and I lunged toward her. But the creature appeared behind me quick as lightning, blocking my way. "You cannot trust her," it screeched, claws outstretched, drawing closer. The shadows warped from around it like tendrils, reaching for me, but I didn't waver. "No!" I shouted, stepping beyond the creature. It felt as if the world shifted again, the ground trembling underfoot. I reached the girl, grasping her small hands tightly, pouring all the hope I could muster into that connection. In an instant, the whispers escalated into a cacophony of cries. The shadows converged, and the two beings collided in a furious clash, darkness battling against the fragile light that flickered within the girl. I held on to her tightly, desperate to stay grounded, praying for freedom. The air shimmered, and for a blinding moment, all the chaos was swallowed by a brilliant light. I opened my eyes, blinking against the brilliance. I was back in the hospital corridor, my chest rising and falling wildly. The shadows had receded, replaced by a hum of everyday life. Nurses bustled, patients chatted, and the building seemed alive again, the oppressive fear lifting as if it had never claimed me. My hands were empty, save for the locket that now lay cold in my palm. I looked around, searching for the girl, wondering if she had been just a figment of the darkness that had swallowed us both. Had I truly helped her? Or had I merely stepped into the web of shadows for my own sake? I couldn't tell. And as the chaos of the hospital resumed, the questions looming just outside my reach made my pulse race all over again. I'd survived, but I left with one haunting question. Had I really freed her at all? Or would her voice echo through my mind forever, urging me to return and confront the shadows once more? I suppose some mysteries remain hidden, buried within the flickering lights and whispers of a past, waiting to be unveiled. And although I moved on, I still think about it sometimes, wondering what was real and what lay beneath the surface.